Hey y'all. So as always, we are just waiting to see who pops up. And I hope I don't flash y'all tonight. So it's gonna sound like a repeat if you all tune in to Let It Go Wednesday last night. But we are officially in a new month, and I hope that you all have been doing well so far, and I hope that you are sticking to your goals. This is the time of year that a lot of people start to slack off, but if you are dedicated, if you are committed, if you are willing to reach your goals, let this be the year that you finally reach your goals, instead of just giving up along the way. Just keep pushing, just keep going. Hey, Timothy. And if you need to take a break, take your break, but always be willing to come back, ready to keep going until you get to the finish line. As for me, I'm still working on my book, and I'm going to talk a little bit about where I am in the process a little later because it's related to our topic tonight. And also, how are you doing, Timothy? So, also, I'm going to have the company website for Masterpieces Writing and Editing LLC up and ready to go either by the end of this week or next week. And I'm super excited because it really has been like a work in progress for quite some time. And like I mentioned last night on Let It Go Wednesday, I'm going to do some videos. It might be YouTube as well as a live video just to talk about the learning experience with that and the reason why it was important for me to get that done. And hopefully it inspires you all to do the same. So I cannot wait to share that with you because in addition to the website, some other things are going to be updated too. And I think I made that announcement sometime last year about how things were about to change. So I cannot wait to just share that with you all. That's awesome. All is well. That is great. Yeah, and I can honestly say that all is well with me too. So it is officially 6:03. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So if you saw the title, it is How to Unlock the Story Inside of You. So if you follow me on any of my social media platforms, I made a post last week with a Thursday tip and it spoke about how to unlock the story inside of you. And I wanted to share a little bit more insight as to why these four things are important. And just to give you all a backstory on where the idea came from. So, as a writer and an editor, I work with a lot of authors and a lot of authors who tell their personal stories. And oftentimes it's in a self help book or a memoir, but it's kind of difficult to continue to tell your story, especially if like you've told it one way before, but you want to rephrase it or reshape it to represent it to another different group of people or just to have a different message. And sometimes it can seem like you don't know which direction to take with it because it's your story. You've been with it for so long. So it's like, what else can I say? And sometimes, if it's your first time, your first go round with writing about your story, you don't even know where to start. It's difficult to even make that first sentence. It's like, where do I even begin? Because it's so much that you've experienced, so much that you have gone through. So I'm going to help you all out. If you fall into either of those categories, either it's like you don't know how to put the direction into a way where people will be able to grasp it, or you just don't know where to start. So I'll definitely be able to help you all. So, number one, you have to know your why. And this is something that I say a lot for a lot of different reasons. You have to understand the purpose why you do absolutely anything because you won't even be motivated to keep going with it because it's like, what's the point if there's no real purpose behind it? And whenever you are figuring out your why or your purpose, it has to answer the question, why does this story need to be told? Why does this book need to exist? So an example that I'm going to use throughout tonight's video is a book that encourages young people to go after their goals. So it will reach young adults and encourage them to reach their goals. So why does this book need to exist? It's like, what would be the point? It's like, why do young people need to know that it's possible for them to reach their goals? So once you're able to have a clear answer for that question, then that becomes your why. It's important for young people to know that they can achieve their dreams so that they can be encouraged, so that they can aspire for greater, so that they can be ambitious, so that they don't just think that where they are now is where they're always going to be. If that's something that you want to encourage people to do, then that is your why. And also with me, with my book, I knew that there were more than just me, more people than just me who were going through what I was going through. And I wanted to let them know you're not alone. And all you have to do is just take that first step, to just speak about the things that you're going through in order to be able to work through them. So once you're able to pinpoint your why, to pinpoint your purpose, you can always go back to that as your starting point. Whenever you have to start over, when you have to go back to the drawing board, that is always the place where you can revisit. Because again, you'll know, all right, this is the reason why I'm doing it, and this is where my focus should be. So, number 2, you have to identify your message. Now, this can get a little tricky because it can be very similar to your why. So, like I mentioned before with the book about the youth reaching their dreams, it's like, okay, so we know that that's our why. We want to encourage them to know that this is possible, but why? What's going to be the message? And I believe that a good message for this would be, regardless of your age, your dreams are possible. You can achieve them. Whatever it is, whatever you can think of, dream of, and imagine, you can achieve it. That's the message. So with the message in mind, that's when you start to craft, okay, so how am I going to deliver this message? In what way can I share this message? And that's when you start to think about the lessons that your story will teach. So what would people be able to take away from your story? What would they be able to take away from your book? What can you share with them that they will be able to apply in their own lives? So with the question, it's like, okay, so if you want people to know that they can achieve their dreams at any age, whatever it is nothing that's too far-fetched. What do people need to have? So they need to have drive, determination. They need to be able to be committed. They have to have a vision. They have to have a high sense of self-esteem. They have to have positive self-talk. They have to be willing to set goals and go after them. So with those things in mind, it's like, okay, so these lessons can help me craft my message. And with your message, that's what you want to share with people. It's like, okay, so at the end of the day, if you don't get anything else from my story, I want you to get this main idea. So think about your message as being the overall point, the overall idea. So number 3, the next step would be to work backwards. Now, I'm one of those people who work really, really well whenever I work backwards. And I think if I can get this correct, because it's been a while, since I've been in school, but I think this would be deductive reasoning when you start with the bigger picture and then you break it down into smaller parts. And I think the opposite is inductive. You start off small and build. If I got it backwards, excuse me, but you get the point. So I like to start with the end goal. So at the end of the day, how do I want people to feel once they're done with this story? What is it that I want people to do once they reach the end of the book? Let's just say that's page 300. What do I want people to do at page 300? How do I want them to feel? So in working backwards, it's like, okay, so now that I know what I want the end goal to be, I can figure out what happens in the in between. And working backwards is really good for a nonfiction book and a fiction book, because any good story has a beginning, middle, and an end. And I know a lot of people wouldn't believe that about nonfiction because it's like, well, don't you just tell the story in the way that it happened? Not necessarily. And oftentimes how you structure a nonfiction book can be based on what you want people to learn, what you feel they should be learning at a certain point. Sometimes you do it, okay, so here's the lighter stuff and here's the heavier stuff. It just depends on what the overall goal is. So once you're able to work with the ending, once you know where you're going, you can work backwards and figure out, okay, so people need to be able to understand this before they get here. They need to be able to see themselves in a particular way before they get here. And that goes back to those lessons that you start to brainstorm. Okay, so how can I tie this in into how I want people to feel or what I want them to do at the end of the book? So going back to the example with the youth achieving their dreams. So we want them to know that at any point in time, they can reach their goals. So when they put the book down, you want them to feel motivated. You want them to feel encouraged. You want them to feel inspired. You want them to feel as if they are capable of doing anything and everything that they set their minds to. So now all you have to do is figure out, what does it take for them to get there? What do I need to say? What do I need to present to them? And it can also be how you want to shape your message and what medium do you want to share it. So just to give you guys an example, so I have a client who started out wanting to do a book, but now she wants to do a workbook. Because when you think about what you want the takeaway to be, she wants to teach more. So with her wanting to teach more, all right, it makes more sense to do a workbook. So you have to keep these things in mind whenever you're crafting your story. So, number 4, this is a really big one. And like I mentioned to you guys before, like this is where I am at this point in the writing process for my book. You have to embrace the journey. You have to embrace the journey. And I cannot say this enough. Like, you have to trust the process and you have to let things just naturally take shape and just be what they are. And I know that the people who are sticklers for time frames and getting things done at a certain point in time, and while that's still fine, that is still great because you want to be able to set goals and be able to achieve them, but you also have to be realistic too. So sometimes life happens. Like I mentioned with my book, I wanted it to come out last year, but it didn't. But I embraced it. And now I'm just sitting back and I'm letting the story basically write itself because there were even chapter titles that I just knew I was going to use. But now I'm like, I don't think that's relevant to my story, and things just take a shape of their own. And with that, you just go with it. You don't fight it. You just embrace it. You go with it, and with learning to just take a step back, you also don't feel the need to rush the process. It's like I know I'm going to get to the finish line, and I know that by the time I get to the finish line, this is going to be the best version of the story ever because I'm really just letting it take shape. And oftentimes, even when you're brainstorming, which is the reason why I tell people be willing to start over, because sometimes you will realize the story that you are writing is like, this isn't really saying what I wanted to say. And sometimes it takes trial and error. So, just to give you all an example, so I think my sister was mentioning to me, I think it was Torrey Roberts, who's been writing a book, and he was like, he was pretty much almost done with the book, but then he reached the point to where he realized, wait a minute, I need to rewrite this story. Like, this isn't what I need to say. So he scrapped it and he started over, even with me. So I didn't completely start over with my book, but I realized, like, nah, I got to go back in and change some things because this isn't saying exactly what I needed to say. And guess what? Just like with life, when we're writing, it's going to go through ebbs and flows. And especially if you're telling your personal story, it is going to go through ups and downs and a lot of changes. And you just have to be willing to adapt to them and be willing to just go with the flow. And whatever that new change is, just be willing to embrace it. Just be willing to go with it. And just like I mentioned with the workbook, I think that's a wonderful idea, and it's like, oh, wow, like, why didn't we think of that from the beginning? But again, it was in time to consider that. You just have to let things just take a course of their own and just let it be what it is. So, just to give you all a recap of how to unlock the story inside of you. Number 1, you have to know your why. You have to have a purpose for writing. Number 2, you have to identify your message. Be clear and direct about what you want your story to communicate. Number 3, work backwards. So start with the end goal in mind and then create a story around it that supports the ending. And number 4, just embrace the journey. Just embrace the process. Allow your story to take shape naturally and just go with it. Just be willing to go with the flow. So I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Like always, I really do appreciate you guys for tuning in with me and for sticking with me. And as a token of my appreciation, if you guys are interested in getting more tips on writing your book, make sure that you go to the link in the bio and go to Gumroad and check out my first ebook, How to Write a Book Without Breaking the Bank. And if you use code LIVE10, LIVE10, you can save $10. So the ebook and worksheets, I think, is $29.99 now. You can get it for $19.99 if you want the ebook by itself. I think the original price is $19.99. You can get it for $9.99. That's $10. And if it's other full ebooks that you want, go for it. And it's also eligible for the bundle deals. I had to think about it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so bundle deals and full ebooks, you can save $10 on Gumroad. And again, it is code LIVE10, LIVE10. And if you guys are interested in working with me one-on-one, you can book a one-on-one session and we can do Pick My Brain, just like we're doing right now. Or we can do accountability partner if you need a little help with reaching your goals, if you need that extra push. And also we can do goal setting. We can boss your goals. So if you just need help with just getting your goals out on paper, I can definitely help you with that as well. And if you have any comments, any questions, if you want to continue this conversation, you can leave me a comment or send me a DM. If you are interested in doing a live video with me, or if you have any suggestions for topics that I should cover in the future, please feel free to let me know. You can comment or DM. And also, I realize that I have not been saying this in any of my videos. Share these videos. If you know is someone who can benefit from these videos, feel free to share it with them. I know that there are a lot of writers out there, a lot of authors out there, who've already published books, but they still want to get back out there and do it again. Share this information with them because each book writing process is going to be different. It's very similar to when people say that each pregnancy that they have is different. Each book that you write is going to be different. So even if it's someone who has already published a book, feel free to share it with them as well because it's always going to be something new that you can learn, and it's always going to be a new approach that you can take with something. And if you want to stay up to date with what's going on with Masterpieces Writing and Editing LLC, make sure that you subscribe to my mailing list. And there is also a free gift there for you guys to help you save some money. So if you've been interested in working with me, feel free to sign up and get that code so you can save. And also make sure that you schedule a free consultation if you're interested in book coaching. And I offer individual and group book coaching. So we can have a chit chat to figure out which one would be best for you. And as always, I really do appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I will see you all in 2 weeks. So make sure that you're following me here on @Masterpieces Writing and also on @SheWritesMasterpieces so you won't miss another live video, whether it's Pick My Brain or Let It Go Wednesday. So I hope you guys have an amazing evening, and I will see you all soon. Bye.